Here we go. My name's Todd.
This is Cathy.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen Parenting Radio. This is podcast number 810. And why listen to Zen Parenting Radio? Because you'll feel outstanding. And always remember our motto, which is that the best predictor of a child's well-being is a parent's self-understanding. On today's show, we are going to talk a little bit about your Substack, which you titled The Unseen Work of Regulating Others.
Yeah.
You know a little about that, do you?
I do.
But first, you want to talk about 2 TV shows and then an event that we have cooking tomorrow night.
Yeah. So first of all, the event, for those of you who are local in the Chicagoland area, Todd and I are speaking at Deerfield High School on Wednesday night. So that's Wednesday, April... What's today?
April 9th.
April 9th. And it's at 7:30 to 9. It's at Deerfield High School. It's open to the public, so you don't have to be from the, that school. It's open to anyone. And we're going to be talking about friendship dynamics and how, as your kid is growing and, their struggles with friends or finding groups or the pressure, or how it feels for you as a parent, because I think sometimes parents have a harder time with the friendship struggles than the kids actually do.
Right.
So please come join us. It'll be interactive. Obviously, if you've ever seen us speak before, we love questions. We love Q&A. And then Todd, I want to just do a quick thing on Yellowjackets,
Okay.
the TV show, because a couple months ago, you and I talked about how excited we were that Severance, White Lotus, and Yellowjackets were coming back.
Correct.
Your question to me is, which one was I most excited about? And I said Yellowjackets. And I have to share that it is not, for me, been a great season. Season 1 of Yellowjackets is one of my favorite experiences of TV. It brought together all the things that I love. Season 2 was pretty good, but not quite as good. And so I thought maybe season 3, they would kind of raise their game again. I don't know. Something happened where the whole tone changed. It almost feels like things are, I don't know. So I just wanted to share that. I don't know if anyone else watching Yellowjackets feels similarly, but I just wanted to say that in case people were watching season 3 and they were like, I thought Cathy loved this show. Season 1, Todd, you agree, right? Season 1?
You always liked it better than I did, but yes, the first few seasons were really good.
Okay.
So cute, so revival, so alone.
So now I told Todd, I go, really, the only thing I'm excited about now is them getting rescued, which will happen soon because winter's
Which is what
coming.
we waited for on Lost for a long time, even though they were rescued very early in the season with the flash forwards and flashbacks.
True. We got to go back.
Yeah. Got to go back, Kate.
We got to go back. So next I wanted to talk about the White Lotus. It finished, this Sunday, whenever you're listening. It was a couple days ago. Season 3, White Lotus. And I thought something that was interesting is I wrote something about the women.
Kind of a lame theme song.
The guy who wrote this theme song quit. He quit the White Lotus.
Did he quit because it was a bad theme song?
No, he quit because he said he didn't want to work with these people anymore. I think it was a contentious quit.
Thanks.
But anyway, but I thought the end, which I'm not going to spoil a bunch of things because if you're listening to this on Tuesday, maybe you haven't gotten a chance to watch it. But I would say that I wrote something on my Substack a couple weeks ago about the women, the 3 women, and I thought their ending was very interesting. And I kept saying to Todd, this is more like what women do. And I meant it in a positive way, not in a negative way. There is something that happens that I think is more reflective of what women are capable of doing. And everyone's capable of doing it, but it's more my life experience.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that as kind of a follow-up.
Well, and that kind of dovetails nicely into what the topic of the meeting is, or the meeting of the episode is the unseen work of regulating others. Obviously, there's exceptions in every family, but in our marriage, Cathy does more of the regulating others. And can we really regulate others? We can.
We think we are.
We can create support to allow another person to do their own work.
Yeah, I think it's
like you can't regulate me.
No, but I think what you and this is what I wrote about. So if you're wondering about what the actual essay is about or Substack, you need to go to my Substack. If you scroll down, Todd, will you have a link?
Yep,
They
there's a
scroll
link
down?
every week. There's a link.
And if you go on Instagram or just go to Substack and type in Kathy Kasani Adams, you'll find it. But basically, there are things that people who tend to regulate others do that I don't think people are aware of. And some may be like, you're not really doing anything because from the outside it looks quite invisible. But there's things that are happening that keep a conversation harmonious, that make sure everybody feels included, that can temper someone's mood. I mean, I write about it in the first two paragraphs. Like if you and I are at a family dinner and it's the five of us,
Yep.
right? There are things I'm doing in that conversation that have nothing to do with my needs and are more about making sure everybody's being heard, that I'm making eye contact with the right people, that I'm then, looking at somebody who hasn't spoken to make sure they get a chance, maybe saying to somebody, hold on, don't say anything yet. This person's about to speak.
So some of it's about regulating somebody like that's really struggling, and other times it's just kind of the social lubricant of a conversation.
Correct. And it's both, the social lubricant of a conversation is a regulating force because it keeps there from being a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stay ahead of it.
So there are times, and I know you haven't loved this, that we've been in conversation maybe with our girls and you've been about to say something and I've put my hand on you.
Yeah, not a fan.
I know you're not a fan and I very much understand. And, you have every right to be like, hey, I want to say what I want to say. But I know that what you're about to say is going to cause a lot of disruption because either the person hasn't finished talking or what you're about to say is going to make them go like this. And I'm trying to maybe finish this conversation on a certain note. Now, I think some people would be like, well, that's controlling. Sure. In some situations, I am controlling a situation where I'm trying to keep, like I said, I'm trying to keep things harmonious. But there's also times that those when someone's doing that all the time, it's dependent on. And then when that person's not in the mix, there's a lot of things went bad or the conversation didn't go well.
Or it could be just dead silence.
And there is a lot of there's a lot of not understanding that the reason that happened is because there's usually someone in the conversation that is, I'll use your language, lubricating the conversation. So what's the drawback? The drawback is it can be controlling to, other people. It also means that I'm not really participating from my own sense of self. I am participating in a way and making sure that everybody else is okay.
You're doing you're putting everybody else's mask on the airplane instead of your own.
Correct. So I'm coming in and being like, how's everybody doing? And even if I'm in and this has nothing to do with I'm not coming in anxious. I'm usually in a really good mood, which is part of it, right? I'm always in a good mood. I mean, Todd knows I'm not, but for the most part, if we're at dinner, if we're out, if we're with people, I don't really have a lot of volatile
You're not going
moods.
to bring your crappy day into
No.
the conversation.
So I'm mine's been put aside and now everybody else tell me about your day. Now, again, that's pretty typical of a parent. We have to make sure that we're there for our kids. This is not, I think the reason I wanted to write about this is I think for a lot of women, and as you said, there are definitely men who do this. If you actually read my Substack, I don't even give a gender. I mean, I talk about what I discuss in Restoring Our Girls. So I guess you could say, I'm referring to my book, but I just say you through the whole thing. I don't give a gender.
Right.
Because so the first sentence is you walk into a room and instinctively assess how everyone is doing, picking up on everyone's tone, mood, and subtle cues. That is my daily experience, is walking into a room and noticing what everybody is feeling and experiencing. And then I come in with that understanding of I'm going to talk now. I'm not going to talk now. I'm going to be quiet because I'm assessing other people. So,
yeah. And there's times, going back to, sometimes when you put your hand on my leg when I am about to say something, some of it's like, hey, I deserve to have a place in this conversation. And what about my perspective? And I think what you do most of the time, not all the time, is helpful. And honestly, sometimes it's just hard to find an opening.
I understand.
There's a lot of, especially if all five of us are together, if it's me and you and one of the kids, it's a little bit easier to find my space. But if there's three kids and a wife, I'm just like, I feel like unless I interrupt, there's no space anyways.
Yes. Oh, I get that. Like we're a talkative crew.
Yeah.
We have a lot of opinions. We have a lot of pop culture examples. We have a lot of experiences that we like to share. So I understand why Todd feels that way. And in no way am I trying to silence him from a conversation. I think what I'm trying to do is not have him say something that then he has to not apologize necessarily, but he's got to circle back and figure that out with the girls. Like I kind of know when something he's going to say is going to go awry.
Right.
And so in some ways, okay, just to be, completely transparent, I'm trying to protect him and protect them. And I'm trying to protect myself from having to be someone who makes sure that all of that goes well.
Right. And there's a egoic part of me is like, let me mess up so then I can fix it. And you're like, yeah, but
I kind of end up doing that.
Right. Right. Some of the time.
Like you take accountability and responsibility. This isn't about that you're not responsible, but really there's a lot of like, then I sit with you and talk through maybe here's something you could do, or here's a good idea, or I don't necessarily go to the girls and talk about you, but I assess how they're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
There's just a lot of things that I think I think one of the biggest parts that is unseen is absorbing other people's tension, which is it's basically what we've been saying before. But I will come into a conversation, and this isn't just with my children and you. I do this with clients sometimes or with other people. Is they're saying something that's like heavy or heavy-handed or big, and there's an absorbing of taking it in and listening and softening the edges for other people and doing things that keep the conversation going. Have you ever been in conversation before, Todd, with two or three people who are more like an 8 on the Enneagram?
Yeah.
Meaning they're really, they just say what they mean. They're coming full on. Mm-hmm. They have big opinions. And how does that conversation go?
There's usually a disagreement or an argument.
Yes. And people often don't feel like they're getting their needs met in the conversation. I'm picturing some in my mind right now where there's just a lot of yelling. There's a lot of rolling the eyes. There's a lot of, you don't know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of, and somebody who is a little more of, who regulates others, if they came into that situation, I'm not saying they would make it all perfect, but they'd probably do things that would be somewhat invisible, but they would do things to temper that. Like, oh, hold on, wait a second. I want to know what you were thinking. What were you going to say? Okay, now that I got that. Okay, now what were you thinking? And people will be like, well, that's just conversation style. It's really not.
Right.
You're really just trying to keep the temperature low. And you're someone who can kind of help mediate that conversation in a somewhat invisible way. And I think the reason that I wrote about it, or that I talk about it, and I especially share with Todd, is it's very tiring. And what I wrote about in the Substack is the fact that I know I do it. I was taught to do it, meaning I grew up as a woman, or as a young girl and as a woman, and the whole culture tells me to be nice and kind and make sure other people are taken care of and notice other people's needs and be really empathetic. And so it's like kind of ingrained in us. And then plus my job, I'm a therapist, all of that kind of stuff. So I've learned it on a clinical level, but I also get blamed for doing it. So people are like, well, you shouldn't do that. You should have more boundaries. Let people make their own decisions. Let them, as Mel Robbins would say, or, allow people to make their own mistakes and whatever. So then I also am told that maybe I'm being codependent, right? So there's a lot of like blame for doing it. But then if I don't do it, people will look at me and be like, what's wrong with you? What's going on with you? There's something off. You're off in this conversation. So do you see the cycle?
Well, you say, and it said, I don't know if this paragraph was in your first draft, but you said, what burnout is, and you don't want to abandon yourself. You've done the therapy, read the books, practice mindfulness. You're wondering if it's related to perimenopause, or maybe you're in full-blown menopause. You've reread Codependent No More than once. Hell, it lives on your nightstand. You've been told you do these things because of early trauma, because there was a time when being hypervigilant made you feel safe. You want to kind of just embellish on that paragraph, sweetie?
So basically, I put that paragraph in after I had written my first run through of this, because I wanted people to understand that I know, like, when, it's like, if I say, well, I tend to regulate others, people will be like, well, you shouldn't do that. And that's not good for you. And that's not good for them. And I'm like, I'm quite aware. Like, I've studied these things. I know. I've gone to therapy. I know it can hurt me. I know it can hurt others. I know all these things. And that doesn't mean I've given up on the whole idea, or that I'm just gonna, I think that people don't understand how it's dependent on, like, for as much as, people want to be like,
well, basically you're trying to prevent, for some reason I'm thinking like spilled milk on the floor.
yeah,
Instead of letting me spill the milk on the floor, you can put your hand underneath the glass,
Yeah.
that in case I do something, then the milk is not spilled on the floor.
or I'll say, hey, Todd, here's a cap.
Yeah.
And it's not about don't talk or don't drink milk. It's about right at this second, hold on. Someone is finishing up a thought, let them finish, and then maybe take a breath and say something. So sometimes I'll just put my hand on your leg. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I do that because if you interrupt, I know, and this is not just with our children, but with people, there'll be a hold on. You know what I mean? Like, I know what's going to come, and I know that we can sit here and say, let Todd experience that, but it's not just him experiencing it. I'm there too. And oftentimes I'll be the one that they will come to later and say, oh, that frustrated me or whatever. So I am involved.
Well, and even the idea of interrupting, like, even that is a relative term, because there is something called mindful interruptions. We're like, hey, I just want to understand you for a second here. Like, that's a mindful interruption. If I'm just waiting for my turn to talk and about to give a really good 30-second lecture, that's probably not the best time to be interrupting.
Right. Right. And the thing is there is just, like, I see all the different sides of it. Like, I see the fact that sometimes I am doing it just because I'm ready for bed and I want everyone to just be fine and go to bed, and I don't want to have some,
You don't want to clean up the milk.
I'm doing it for me, right? I know that sometimes I'm doing it because there's someone that I can feel needs a little extra care. And I'm like
this one is in a really fragile state right now.
Correct. And I am always willing, when that person is struggling, to give them more of my energy than to myself, right? I'm like, you're the most important. And then there are times that I feel like, I mean, and because I've been saying all these things that are good, like, sometimes I don't think what Todd's about to say is a good thing to say. Like, I want to be like, even though it may be wrong for me to stop him, I'm like, I know you're going to piss this person off. And not because he's intending to, not because has any malintent, but it is going to cause a rift. And sometimes it just happens and we figure it out, and we always do. But you can understand I think the thing about this that I wanted to write about without having a resolution, which was the end of the White Lotus, that was really what they said, is, remember the monk is giving the, not sermon, what do they give? Like
his talk?
This talk in the morning. And he basically says, just know life doesn't have resolution, right? So there's no resolution to this. It's not that Todd and I are saying, okay, therefore do this. But the subtitle of what I wrote is why noticing and managing other people's emotions is both expected and also criticized. Like, this is something that I think a lot of moms and others do a lot in their families, is they're very tempering of people's emotions and very watchful of what people are saying and doing. And that is also what sometimes kids can't stand about their parents, is there's too much tempering and too much watching and too much noticing. And then there's also that middle piece where the parents or the mom is doing that all the time, and there's not even a recognition that she's doing anything.
Right.
It's so invisible that there is they think they're doing it. They think they're tempering themselves. And really it's because of the way the conversation has been organized. So
didn't you have a version or a paragraph in there that you took out because it would have been through a more angry lens?
Yes.
And if so, are you willing to share that here because you can share some context around it?
Well, I think few things I did. I made the language more subtle because when I wrote it, I was really mad. And I was mad. Like I said, I put in the thing about perimenopause and menopause because I sometimes have these days where I feel a lot of rage. And it doesn't happen that often. It's usually around my period. It kind of makes sense. I was explaining to Todd that when you're in perimenopause, when your period comes, you're especially at the stage I'm at 54, because I have not gone through full blown menopause yet, is that your estrogen and progesterone dip, which means your serotonin isn't working the way it's supposed to. And all of those like boundaries that I have in myself, or filters, or like the capability to access like the best well-intentioned thing to say or do or feel, I don't have access to that on certain days. And I think I've never been like someone who's gone through extreme PMS, premenstrual syndrome, but I'm finding in perimenopause that I'm having days like this where I'm very angry. And
We're going to
I'm totally a rat in a cage.
we're going to do a Men Living Team Zen thing that is going to help anybody who wants to listen, have you talk to me and whoever wants to hear it. You just explained it, like the drop in serotonin or estrogen or whatever it is.
The first two drop and then the serotonin.
Because one thing you said is, what does our society say? Oh, women are crazy, women are on their period, blah, blah, blah. And as somebody who's really logical, when you said that to me, estrogen and what's the other one you said?
Estrogen and progesterone.
Yeah, I don't pretend to understand what either one of those things do, but the serotonin one, I do understand a little bit. And if that chemically is being removed from your workings, then that makes sense to me.
Right.
But until I know that, I'd be like, can't you just be normal? And the reason you can't be normal is because the chemistry in your body is different.
Exactly.
That's a really helpful thing for me to know as your husband.
Yeah. So like Todd said, we're going to host something and we're going to talk about menopause. And I would really like men to come because they're the ones who need to understand.
Because a lot of them live with a woman who's going through it.
And I think so. And so what happens besides just feeling rage, I think, and I use that word not loosely, like I felt so angry. And this is why when all of that drops away from me and I'm ungrounded chemically. Okay. I feel everything that the world is going through. And that's partly maybe Cathy. I can't, like, this is a mix of being me.
Your protection is gone.
My protection is gone.
Right. Shield is down. Your face mask is off and you're vulnerable.
Exactly. So all the things that I've been able to imagine it like that I'm in the trash compactor in Star Wars, and I'm able to put up my hands and that's all the chemicals that are working as they should. And, and I'm like, okay, all these things are crashing in on us, but I'm holding these at bay because I have all these chemicals helping me. And then all of a sudden there's a day or two, depending on where you are in your cycle, that everything just kind of dips and I can't hold those walls anymore. And I can feel it and I can see it.
These are the walls.
Yes, this was me. Was actually weak.
Sweetie, you're trying your best.
Help me.
Leia's trying. They're trying to put that big steel beam in between.
And that's the thing is like when that's closing in on me, I do need help and I don't need help. Do you want to hear a word?
Sure, you just need to call 3PO. Where could he be? Go ahead.
But that's really how it feels. And the thing that I know for a fact is I'm able to say to Todd, I know this will pass, but right now I'm not okay. And I feel everything that's happening in the world and it is unbelievable to me. And I just cry and cry and cry and cry and cry.
Yeah.
And it's very painful.
And being married to you for a long time, I'm getting better at being able to engage and lean in and hold space when your chemical levels are down. And I'm not close to a perfect husband, but I think I'm getting better at being able to just be okay when you're not okay. And I but there's a part of me that gets defensive and like, well, what? Like everything was fine yesterday and now it's not today. And I just think us husbands who happen to be married to wives can invest a little bit of their energy into allowing and supporting your most important person to go through this.
Well, and I think even more important is learn about what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, oh, my poor wife, I got to support her through this. That's like my nightmare. Like, the amount of times that, especially this month, that I said to Todd, I don't want any jokes about, women and emotions and all these things because, and this is just me being mad about it. But if you guys had to go through what we had to go through, I don't know if you'd do as good of a job. Like, I have been, and I'm saying that kind of just to be mean, like I have had days this week where my leg is in pain. I have cramps. I'm having emotional issues right now. I have a headache and I keep on trucking, as you would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder, and that's just something I know how to do, right? We keep doing the things. And I don't mean that when, that you get a man cold and you're in bed all day, but this is our life. Like, this isn't just a day. This is like fluctuations and cycles that we go through. And I think if you guys understood it versus helping us through it, not even versus, on top of helping us through it, it would make more sense. And then it wouldn't be so foreign and it wouldn't be something that you would maybe make light of.
Yeah.
Because it's not really that funny, because we are really having an experience of pain or emotional letdown, and it's not our fault.
Right.
Like, we didn't do anything to make that happen. This is what our bodies are going through.
But what about?
He's got a cold.
For God's sake, woman, he's a man. He's got a man cold.
Sweetie, the man cold.
I know. And I think, I haven't watched the whole thing, but Oprah did a whole thing about menopause last week. And there's one clip where a couple comes on together and the guy, it's her husband and she's gone through a lot. And she's, this woman is in perimenopause and he's like, now that I understand what my wife is going through and how it cycles and all these experiences, he's like, all I think about is if this happened to men, there'd be a pill. Like, we would have created a pill by now. We would have done something to make sure that men didn't have to go through all of these things without any medical interventions.
So a few things. What are a few of you said Oprah had somebody on. Who did she have on?
Oh, sorry. Oprah on March 31st, so a week or so ago, she did a special. And she had on a bunch of people who are like the voices of menopause right now. You know, Dr. Marie Haver, Naomi Watts, Halle Berry, Maria Shriver. She just had a bunch of people on to talk about this. And she also had people call in, and ask questions, as Oprah does with her,
Got it.
with her. And she's also done some podcasts about it. And so have many, many other people. There's a lot of people out there who are now talking about menopause. And I think if you have
Sharon Malone,
she had her on the podcast too, and she's wonderful as well. She's the one who started Aloy, which is, I get some of my vitamins from Aloy.
Yeah, I got an Oprah Winfrey special, The Menopause Revolution, Monday, March 31st.
Yeah.
Oh, it was on ABC.
Yeah.
So that's one. And didn't you share some podcasts with me that you wanted me to listen to?
I haven't. I've been waiting for you to ask me for them, to be honest with you.
I scrolled through our texts and I thought for sure you sent them, but I can't find them.
Oh, no, I never did.
Oh.
I never did. I thought I was.
Well, now is as good a time as any.
Okay.
Do you have them?
So, well, I mean, I do, but I will pull them up and send them to you. I mean, because, who do you want to hear from? Like that, like what aspect? Do you want to hear the big picture? Like, Dax has had a few people on. There's been some people on Mel Robbins. There's been, people on Oprah's podcast.
Whichever one, because I haven't listened to any of these things. So whichever one you think would be most useful and productive for me is the one I want to start with.
Well, and I think the thing that we understand now, which I didn't understand even a year ago, and now I understand, is that when estrogen is depleted and also our testosterone goes down, all of these things go down. But I'll especially talk about estrogen. That affects every aspect of our body, not just our, our cycles
Mhm.
and, getting our periods or releasing eggs. It affects our livers. It affects, our, brain. It affects everything.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these things that women have been told to just live with, like, oh, you have, like right now I have a shooting pain down my leg, and it's probably nerves, which is related to even perimenopause. You know what I mean? Because it only really shows up around my cycle.
Yeah.
Like it's so interesting, right? Once you have this information. And there are things we can do now. Again, we're making this all a menopause podcast, but there was a study that came out a while ago, probably a decade or so ago, that somehow correlated breast cancer with taking hormone replacement therapy. And so everyone was afraid then to take hormone replacement therapy. And even doctors still to this day, I was just at mine and she's still not a fan of it. And we now know that not to be true, or that study was way blown out of proportion. Especially when you look at the long-term risk of doing nothing, like not having any hormone replacement therapy. So I'm in the process of learning all this. I am not someone who's suggesting what everybody should do. I'm not a doctor in that way.
Doesn't sound like the doctors know either.
Well, that's the thing, is there's all this information that I feel one of the things I get rageful about is the fact that from a medical standpoint, I have to constantly advocate for myself, that I have to do more reading and just go in and ask for what I need based on the reading I've done.
Right.
And now in some ways I'm used to that. I've been doing that my whole life when it came to migraines and pregnancy and all these things. But it's interesting that one time I kind of jumped on Todd because what did you say to me? You said something
stupid.
No, we were talking about doctors and the fact that I've had to now have like 4 or 5 different doctors. And you said something like, man, you have to.
Yeah, you really got to work hard to find the right person or something like that.
But the way that I heard it, and I think Todd was just trying to say, oh, that's difficult. But I heard it like that was something that I was doctor jumping, or that I was, needed a lot of doctors because something is wrong. And I really kind of jumped on his case. I'm like, I have no choice. You know what I mean? Like I go to this doctor and they're telling me one thing, and then I go to this one and they tell me another thing. And I am forced to get different people to work with me.
Right.
And I don't think men have that experience as much.
Not only that, most guys don't even go to the doctor.
Good point.
They don't even try. At least I go to it took me 15 years into our marriage for me to go to my annual checkup because I thought I was invincible. I thought nothing would ever go wrong. And knock on wood, nothing has gone wrong. But I don't know if it was you or somebody just said, like, it's not about you, dude.
It's about us.
It's about the family that you're helping support. And you got to know it's not just about you. You got people that are relying on you to be healthy.
Yep.
Anyways.
I totally agree. Like that is part of the reason, there's a couple days out of the year that I call my bravest days. And they are when I go do things like get a mammogram and go to my doctor's appointment. And I wear my I Am Brave socks that my friend Rita gave me. And I do that on purpose. Like I don't love doing that because I'm always running into obstacles where they tell, like I take shots for migraines, and some doctors don't like that because why, I'm constantly navigating my own medical. And this is not, I love doctors. I'm not mad at the medical profession. It's just one of those blocks that we have where we all have different opinions, or we all have different specialties. And I'm not quite. You
just want to go to one source who knows it all.
Yes. And it doesn't work that way. Yeah. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. But let's get back to why we were talking about regulating others. Is I was having one of those days where I was pretty upset about a lot of things, and I just wanted to be mad. Mm-hmm. And I realized that in my life, I really don't have space to be mad. And that if I was mad, I would make everyone else so uncomfortable, and people wouldn't know what to do with me because normally I'm in a good mood.
Yeah, you are productive.
Yeah.
So how often do I get mad? I assume I probably get more quiet than mad, right?
I have no idea. That's not a question for me.
How often do you perceive me as mad?
I perceive you as not mad, but you pull away.
Yeah. I just get quiet or
You just get quiet and you start to like do things on your own, and you're in your office all the time and you just pull away.
yeah.
And you don't think you're pulling away because you'll come out and say, what does everyone want for dinner? But I can emotionally tell that you are like light years away.
Mhm.
So it's less about mad. And
It's more about just
yeah.
unavailability.
Yeah. And I think just to exactly, and that's what you usually
So I
know
have
that.
space to be unavailable. Whereas if you make yourself unavailable, then it's a different household.
Wouldn't you agree with that?
Of course,
Like if you're
that's
unavailable.
the dance we've been dancing since we started these kids,
Exactly.
since these kids showed up.
And I think one of the other pieces that's really important in this rage commentary is that I'm very rageful about things that are going on in the world.
Yeah,
I'm feeling
sprinkle that on.
it's more than a sprinkle, because it's like, I think women and girls are trying to live in this world and do all the things that they normally do and show up in the ways they're expected to show up, and also get blamed for showing up in the ways they're expected to show up. That's kind of what I was writing about, and do all these things while at the same time there is like legislation that's trying to take away our voting rights or decrease our voting rights, like make it more difficult for us to vote. They're, obviously taking away our bodily autonomy and restricting our rights to, reproductive care and everything that is going on with us, and just like an overall kind of contempt for women and their voices, and they're, while in your life doing all these other things, you have to deal with that noise, and you have to act normal in the midst of it, and make sure you talk to everyone the right way about it, and you show up this way, and in some ways, when I have those days where I just let down and just cry, I think it's part of, sometimes the way I look at getting a period is it's not just about the reproductive health of our bodies. It's also about letting go every month of a lot of toxicity and things we don't need, if that's emotional or internal or whatever. And sometimes when I have days where I just cry, I think that is my experience of getting rid of a lot of things I've been pushing away.
Release.
Yeah, noise, just like things that I try, you read a story or you read about a woman being hurt or a woman being raped, or a trial that never happens, or a rape kit that's never looked at, or a young girl that went for help and then never got help and then was killed by her domestic partner. You read about that enough, and you have days where you just want to punch out a window because nobody's paying attention, or not in the right ways. So plus, how's the stock market doing, hon?
Actually, it was down 5% this morning, and now it's only down 1.5%.
Oh,
so it was worse about 6 hours ago. But,
what changed?
I don't know. Market's like, maybe they overcorrected, but it's going to be a tough go for a bit.
Yeah.
Who knows what our president is going to decide, but he's making a lot of waves.
You think?
Let's just say that.
So then there's that you add to it, is all of that chaos. And so anyway, I think that that it's just important to talk about these things that sometimes go unseen.
That's right. So let's talk about what's not being talked about.
Yeah, Todd, let's have a new show called Let's Talk About What's Not Being Talked About.
It's a lot of words.
I know.
Any last minute things? Let's talk about Team Zen real quick, sweetie.
Sure. Team Zen is our parenting virtual community, and it's a fantastic group, and we do live talks with them every month. I have a women's group. We have a group about raising sons. We bring in a lot of speakers, and if you want to join, it's $25 a month. Cancel at any time, and we would love to chat with you.
And don't forget about Jeremy Kraft. He's a bald-headed beauty. He does painting and remodeling throughout the Chicagoland area. 630-956-1800, avidco.net. Catch you next week.